Before we jump into this gripping sci-fi story, drop your city, country, and current time in the comments. Let's see where in the galaxy you're tuning in from. The lecture hall aboard Orbital Academy Station C-12 had a rhythm to it. Cadets filed in at exactly 08000 station time, chattering in a dozen alien languages that blended into the low hum of artificial gravity. The professors rotated like clockwork, each one bringing their own flavor of dry academic theory to what was, despite the grandeur of the name, still a school. Every species had its own quirks in seating preference. The insectoid Valtteri liked to cluster in the center rows for optimal sensory range. The scaled Dravari preferred the far back, where their tails could coil freely. And humans sat wherever the hell they pleased, except for her. Nobody knew her real name. On the roster she was just Cadet Vale. She was human, definitely. Short, dark hair, lean muscle, eyes that seemed to scan the room without really looking at anyone. And she always took the seat nearest to the primary exit hatch. No matter the class, no matter the day. At first the other cadets chalked it up to some human eccentricity, but over time, whispers began to spread. She's claustrophobic. She doesn't like crowds. She's hiding something. Vale never confirmed or denied any of it. She just sat there, near the exit, hands resting lightly on her knees, her attention locked on the front of the class but her posture, off, tense, like a coiled spring. It was a standard galactic warfare doctrine lecture that day. Professor Melko, a crystalline being whose voice resonated like wind through glass, was explaining coalition fleet tactics when the lights flickered. No one paid it much mind. Station maintenance was spotty in the outer sectors, but Vale's eyes narrowed instantly. Her hand slid under the desk. The flicker came again, this time followed by a bass deep thud that vibrated through the deck plates. Professor Melko stopped mid-sentence. Several cadets glanced toward the overhead hollow projector, expecting some technical hiccup. Vale was already glancing toward the hatch. Not in panic, no. Her gaze was calculating distances, scanning the locking mechanism, the pressure indicator lights. Attention, all personnel. The station's AI voice cut in, flat and emotionless. Evacuation protocol Delta Red initiated. Proceed to nearest secure embarkation point immediately. This is not a drill. The announcement hit the room like a shockwave. Chairs scraped, voices rose in confusion, and a few cadets simply froze in place. Vale didn't freeze. She stood in one fluid motion, the seat she'd always chosen putting her exactly 2 steps from the exit hatch. And in those same 2 steps, her hand went to her satchel, not a standard cadet bag, but a reinforced tactical carry pack. She unzipped it in one practiced motion. The first thing that emerged was combat armor plating, matte black, segmented, clearly not Academy issued. She slid the forearm guards into place without looking, muscle memory guiding each strap. Then came the chest piece, locking with a sharp hiss of pneumatic seals. Is she armed? One of the Valtteri whispered, antenna twitching. Vale answered that question by drawing a compact kinetic rifle from the same bag, checking the magazine, and slinging it over her shoulder in one smooth, silent move. By now, half the class had stopped moving entirely, just watching her. Even Professor Melko's crystalline form seemed to dull in color, uncertain how to process the scene. Move, Vale said, her voice low but carrying the weight of command. Now. Out the hatch, down corridor 3, left at the junction. Go. A Dravari cadet hissed. Who put you in charge, human? Vale didn't even look at him. Fine. Stay here, and find out why Delta Red was called. The rest of you, move. The evac route she'd given wasn't random. Every cadet knew the official drill paths posted in each corridor, but Vale's directions led to a secondary embarkation point, one that bypassed the main evac choke points entirely, the kind of detail you only knew if you'd memorized the station's full engineering schematics, which apparently she had. As the group began to move, the The deck shuddered again, harder this time. The lighting switched to pulsing red, and somewhere deep in the station, the muffled roar of weapons fire echoed through the metal bones of the habitat. Someone, maybe the insectoid cadet near the door, whispered, "This isn't a systems failure, we're under attack." Vale didn't answer. Her eyes flicked to the overhead, where the faint tremor of distant impacts rattled dust from the ceiling seams. Then she keyed her wristcom, something no regular cadet carried. The device was military grade. "This is Vale. I'm moving with 19 unarmed cadets towards secondary embarkation point, Bravo 7. What's our status?" A voice came back, tight, urgent, with the clipped tone of someone mid-firefight. "Multiple boarding parties. Unknown species. Breach points on decks 5 through 8. Security grids partially offline. We've got 5 minutes before they reach the main lecture block." Vale's jaw tightened. To the cadets hustling behind her, she barked, "Pick it up. No talking." She took point, rifle at low ready, every sense tuned for trouble. The corridor outside the lecture hall was already chaos. Cadets running in the opposite direction, alarms howling, security personnel pushing past with drawn weapons. She ignored all of it, guiding her group through a narrow maintenance passage barely wide enough for the insectoids to squeeze through. "Why aren't we going with the others?" someone panted. Vale didn't look back. "Because the others are heading straight into a kill zone." That shut them up. Halfway through the maintenance tube, the sound of metallic claws on deck plating echoed ahead. Vale raised her fist, a universal signal to stop, and dropped to a crouch. She peered around the corner. 3 boarding troops, tall, insectoid, but not Valtteri, with segmented armor that glistened wetly under the red lights, were ripping open a bulkhead panel. Their weapons were crude but heavy, projectile launchers that looked capable of punching through academy walls. Vale's rifle came up, the reticle snapping over the lead soldier's neck joint. 1 breath in, 1 breath out. The trigger squeeze was microscopic. The shot wasn't loud, station air dampened the crack, but it was decisive. The alien dropped without a sound, the impact of his armor rattling the deck. Vale shifted aim, tagged the second, then the third before the first body hit the floor. 3 seconds, 3 kills. Behind her, someone whispered in awe. Vale didn't acknowledge it. She stepped over the bodies and motioned the others through. By the time they reached Bravo 7, the station's tremors had intensified. The embarkation point was a small airlock leading to 2 docked shuttles, emergency craft designed for short hops to the nearest safe harbor. A single security officer was holding the hatch, sweat dripping down his scaled brow as he scanned the corridor. Vale shoved her ID chip, clearly not standard cadet issue, into his scanner. 20 outbound, priority load. He glanced at the readout, then at her. "You're not on the... Do you want them alive or not?" Vale snapped. That did it. He stepped aside. As the cadets began filing into the shuttle, Vale keyed her comm again. "Bravo 7 is loaded. Shuttle 2 prepped for launch, sending them to rally point Gamma." The voice came back, grim. "Copy. You staying aboard?" Vale's eyes went back toward the corridor they'd come from. The distant sound of weapons fire was closer now, too close. "Yeah, someone's got to cover the tail." She turned to the shuttle pilot, a young human, eyes wide. "Launch the second you clear the hatch. No waiting." The pilot nodded, and Vale stepped back into the corridor as the hatch began to cycle shut. The last thing the cadets saw before the door sealed was Vale, rifle up, shoulders squared, turning to face the oncoming threat. And for the first time since they'd met her, they understood. She hadn't been sitting near the exit because she was nervous. She'd been waiting for this. The red emergency lights pulsed in time with Vale's heartbeat, bathing the corridor in a rhythm that felt almost predatory. The muffled roar of weapons fire from deeper inside the station was growing louder, sharper, no longer just distant chaos, but the imminent footsteps of the enemy. She took 1 deep, centering breath, checked the rifle's charge, checked the spare mag clipped to her hip, listened. Footsteps. Too many to count exactly, but heavy, staggered, more boarding troops and moving fast. Vale keyed her command. This is Vale. Shuttle 2 is away. I'm holding Bravo 7, but hostiles are moving in from Corridor Delta 3. Estimated contact in 40 seconds. The reply crackled through static. Understood. All other evac points are compromised. Bravo 7 is the last open route. Vale's lips pressed into a thin line. That meant her job had just gone from delay them to hold this position no matter what. She positioned herself at the corridor junction, kneeling behind the cover of a blown-out bulkhead panel. From here, she had a clean view down the long stretch leading toward Delta 3. A faint chittering echoed ahead, the alien language of the insectoid borders. Vale's visor HUD, translated fragments. Push forward, breach the last hatch. No survivors. Her jaw clenched. The first one rounded the corner, weapon up, carapace gleaming in the red light. Vale fired before he'd even finished turning, center mass, the kinetic slug cracking his armor and folding him backward. Two more behind him. She shifted, aim headshot one, dropped the other with a burst to the thorax. They kept coming. It became a rhythm. Fire, shift cover, reload. Grenade toss, duck back, wait for the blast wave to pass, then come up firing. But Vale wasn't just holding a static position. She moved like water, sliding from one bulkhead break to the next, forcing the enemy to split their fire. The narrow corridor became a meat grinder, and she controlled the tempo. Still, the bodies were piling, and for every one she dropped, another took its place. The scent of scorched metal and alien ichor thickened in the air, clinging to her armor. A deep vibration under her boots told her a heavier unit was coming. Sure enough, the next figure to emerge was twice the size of the others, armored plating reinforced with some kind of organic resin, carrying a weapon the size of a human child. Vale's first shots barely scratched him. He advanced, weapon spitting slugs that shredded her cover. She dove, rolled, came up in a crouch, and hit her wrist command. Need fire support on Delta 3. Heavy unit inbound. Negative. Vale. Command's voice came back. Tight. All gun batteries are engaged. You're on your own. Fine. She could work with that. Vale waited until the brute was within 20 meters, then dropped her rifle to hang on its sling. From her belt, she pulled a small disc, smooth, matte black. She thumbed the activation rune and lobbed it underhand. The disc hit the deck and snapped open into a spider-like device, emitting a high-pitched whine. In half a second it discharged an electromagnetic pulse strong enough to short every unshielded circuit in a 10-meter radius. The brute's weapon went dead in his hands. His forward momentum faltered. Vale didn't. She surged forward, sidearm drawn, and put 3 armor-piercing rounds through the gap in his neck plating. The massive body hit the deck with a wet, metallic crunch. Vale didn't pause to admire her work. She could already hear more coming. Then over her another voice cut in, deep, steady, unmistakably military. Vale, status. She froze for half a beat. She knew that voice. Colonel Ashran, you're supposed to be, no time. Bravo 7 is your priority. If that hatch closes before the last shuttle leaves, everyone still aboard is dead. Vale swallowed hard. Understood. The comm went dead again, leaving her with more questions than answers. Ashran had been her commanding officer once before the academy, before she was just Cadet Vale. And if he was on this channel, then this wasn't just a random pirate raid. The next wave came hard. 12 boarders, 2 heavies. Vale moved faster, her shots finding joints, exposed plating, anything to slow them down. But she was burning through ammo fast. Her last mag clicked home with a sickening finality. The enemy knew it too. They pressed harder, their chittering rising in a frenzied pitch. Vale fell back step by step, making them pay for every meter, but she was counting seconds in her head. The shuttle pilot would hold only as long as she told them to. Vale, the pilot's voice crackled in her ear. We've got capacity for 2 more. Are you coming? Her eyes flicked toward the hatch. The shuttle's silhouette waited beyond, ramp open, engines cycling warm. And then she heard it, the distant high-pitched scream of the station's hull under stress. They were running out of time. Launch, Vale said, her voice low but firm. Now. The pilot hesitated. But that's an order. The hatch cycle began. She turned back toward the incoming tide, rifle steady, despite the adrenaline surging through her veins. The shuttle's engines roared behind her as it launched into the void, carrying 19 cadets to safety. Vale didn't watch it go. She was too busy making sure nothing followed it. A massive explosion shook the corridor. Somewhere above, a section of the station had just been breached. The air took on that faint metallic tang that meant pressure loss. Emergency bulkheads slammed down in sequence, sealing compartments. Vale knew what that meant. She was cut off from Central Command. Her visor HUD pinged. New objective data. A red waypoint blinked in her periphery. Armory C-12, Deck 5. Someone in command had just rerouted her orders. She reloaded, last mag, and started moving. Deck 5 was hell. Fires burned unchecked, smoke curling through the failing air circulation. She moved low, avoiding the main corridors, sticking to maintenance shafts where the enemy's bulk made it harder for them to follow. When she reached the armory, her suspicions were confirmed. This wasn't just about the cadets. Inside, a single sealed crate sat in the middle of the room, surrounded by automated turrets. Her ID chip cleared the locks without hesitation. The crate hissed open, revealing a compact railgun, military-grade, prototype. Not the kind of thing you stored on an academy station, unless you were expecting serious trouble. Vale's comm came alive again. Vale, that weapon is priority cargo. Get it to docking bay 2. Extraction team en route. She slung it over her back, double-checking the seals. On my way. Getting to docking bay 2 meant cutting straight through enemy-held territory. Vale didn't hesitate. She wasn't built for hesitation. She fought her way forward, short bursts from the rifle, using grenades to clear clustered groups. Twice she ducked into side passages to avoid heavy patrols. Once she slid under a closing bulkhead with half a second to spare. When she finally reached docking bay 2, the extraction team was already under fire. 3 humans in combat armor were pinned behind a cargo loader, exchanging fire with a dozen boarders. Vale dropped into cover beside them. "Miss me?" she asked. The lead trooper glanced over and froze. "Vale, we thought you's..." "Later, cover me." She swung the railgun off her back, braced it against the loader, and sighted in. The weapon hummed with lethal potential, the magnetic rails heating as they accelerated the first slug. The shot tore through 3 boarders in a single line, punching clean holes through their armor like paper. The survivors scattered, but Vale was already tracking the next group. Shot after shot rang out, each one clearing more space. The troopers rallied, pushing forward to finish the job. When the last boarder fell, the lead trooper keyed his comm. "Bay 2 is secure. Package is aboard." Vale didn't relax. She knew better. This wasn't over. As they boarded the dropship, the station shuddered again, this time so hard Vale had to grab a bulkhead to keep from falling. Through the open bay doors, she saw another ship sliding into view. Not a border craft, not coalition, human. Her visor tagged it automatically, EDF Vanguard class frigate, UNS Hallowpoint. The ship's comms came online. "Vale, this is Captain Rourke, get aboard, now." The dropship launched, angling straight for the frigate's docking bay. As they crossed the gap, Vale looked back at the station one last time. Fires burned in every viewport. Sections of the hull were venting atmosphere into space. She'd saved the cadets, saved the weapon. But the station was gone. In the frigate's debriefing room, Captain Rourke leaned forward, hands clasped on the table. "You did good work, Vale. But I need to know, how did you know to sit by that hatch every single day?" Vale met his gaze, without flinching. "Because I've seen it before. You sit where you can move fast, where you can get people out. Because one day you'll need to." The room was silent for a long moment. Then Rourke nodded. "Welcome back to active duty, Lieutenant Vale.